Hello and welcome to the Southbound Sports Show. I'm your host, Richie Leahy, here with my co-host, Maddie B. We are in the dog days of summer. So if you're watching the video, you can see I'm actually back in the studio, but not in my normal spot today because we are looking to improve the audio and try to get some of the clips we've talked about in the past. Normally I've just read them, but we're going to try to get some audio stuff played. I know we had a request to get a theme song and stuff like that. So if this goes well over the next couple weeks, we're hoping to have that in place by the start of football season. So if you're watching, no topics list today. I will be adding that stuff in depending on how this test goes. We're already getting an error from Skype for people that are watching the video saying we have a poor connection. So hopefully Matt comes in loud and clear, but we will see. Going to start off with high tempo. What do you got for us, Matt?
Well, yesterday I started off with one of our bigger tournaments that we participated in, and I was really happy with the direction our team was competing at. I preached to the guys ahead of time, you need to be running, you need to be conditioning, all the stuff that we've talked about on here. And the team kind of wilted in the sun. This year, we had a different kind of weather. We were dealing with rain throughout the day, and I was pleased with what I saw. That my guys were competing. There wasn't a lot of complaining and whining. It was just they're starting to develop the attitude and the mindset that I'm looking for. That you can't control the weather, so don't complain about it. And we participated well. Ended up getting knocked out late afternoon, but it was still a lot of really good work, and I was proud of my guys.
Very cool. Summer camps are underway for high schoolers, for the most part, 7-on-7s and things like that. We've had some of the workouts for the NFL, and we're going to be getting into media day stuff later in the show because football is approaching, and we know it's going to be big time. But for the main topic this week, Women's World Cup Championship. Did you watch any of the game on Sunday, Matt?
I watched a little bit of it. I mean, I kind of had a feeling going they're just going to continue to dominate the way that they have. What did you think of it?
I watched the game, and I feel like every year they talk about how the other countries are finally catching up to the United States. But to me, it's like a double-edged sword. You can't say that other countries are able to develop their women's program that fast, but then on the same hand say that, it will take decades for the men's program in the United States to match other countries. It's like they expect us to believe that these other countries are going to be able to compete, but at the same time say that our men aren't going to compete, which is a complete lie because you're now having men on our national team that are brought up playing. I mean, since the women have won over the past 20 years or so, these are all new guys being brought up for the most part. So if our training was up to par, we wouldn't have that. Our problem is all of the best male athletes don't play soccer. That's the biggest problem, and it's going to be hard to change when that's the number one sport in a lot of these other countries. I don't think it will change in our lifetime, but I also don't think that means we can't compete.
We should send
What was that?
I think we should send the women's soccer team to the men's next World Cup because they're dominating on the women's stage. Let's say they couldn't do worse than the men.
Well, the men were in the Gold Cup finals against Mexico, and they had their chances to score, and I thought it was I think they were on the same day. I can't remember now because I had a lot of travel this weekend, but I thought they had a couple great chances to get into it and couldn't get it done. Can't miss chances, and I think they ended up losing 1-0 to Mexico. And it just proves that they are close. They're always going to be close. They just need to have consistent coaching, and I think they need to just stop following, because on the women's side, you can see they're not following the style of these other teams. They're kind of punching it together, doing their own thing, getting shots, and waiting and seeing. I was surprised that it was tied 0-0 at the half, if I'm being honest, because the United States seemed to be in control from my perspective, and they really didn't start pouring it on until they got the penalty kick. And I will say, penalty kick, I thought it was questionable. I didn't see a lot of people say that it was questionable, but from my perspective, if you're in a World Cup final, I know the leg went up high. The ball was there. So I know it benefited the United States that we got the penalty kick and we converted to go up 1-0. But to me, let them play on. You can't complain about flopping in soccer on one hand and then celebrate a penalty kick in a championship game like that. But benefited us and actually got them to open things up. And once they opened it up, I was fine with some of the chances. I did like the second goal. I thought she kicked it a little too late. I thought she had an opening earlier by like a split second, but converted anyway. And that kind of put the game away. And you know that it was over once it was 2-0. And I don't think the United States, I think they led every game in this finals or this tournament, which was awesome. And I think the Netherlands had the same streak going in. I don't think they had a lead in every game. I don't think they were ever behind. So some of the other teams like France that they always tout up and talk about how awesome they're going to be, really, until they start to show up on the main stage. And being honest, we're not the only country that have won in women's soccer. I mean, Germany's won, I think, 2, and we're up to 4 now. So it's not like we're king program of all time. That's why I don't think that it's beyond anyone that our men can't compete in the next 2 or 3 cycles. You should be able to put together a team. If Germany can put together a team and win 2 World Cups in women's soccer, the United States could be able to do the same thing for men. And we'll see. Got to get a push. Did you see the thing about the salaries that they are trying to push out, Matt? I think was it a senator or a representative in West Virginia put in a bill that said that the federal government will not pay to host any World Cup games until the men and women's team have equal pay, and I wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Well, first, I don't think it matters. So they can't host. When you look at the revenue, though, if maybe I might be off on the numbers, but I want to say with the men's World Cup, they made around $6 billion. Well, from this women's World Cup, there was only $131 million. So they're talking about equal pay. They're not generating equal revenue. So I don't know how they justify, paying these higher salaries. And especially in an era where a lot of these are more liberal-minded people, they're wanting this equal pay, but then they're assuming genders, and they're assuming all this other stuff. But what is it doing?
I'll say that I get the revenue point, and I know that they're doing equal pay, but I don't know how realistically that can work out. I want to see, if they're going to do that, I want to see how it benefits other Americans. Them winning the cup is just like a guy winning the Olympics. I read all their press conferences. There was nothing about the country. A lot of it was negative towards America and not wanting to visit the White House and things like that. So on one hand, you can't complain the entire time and then want equal pay, because what is the taxpayer getting back from you? Why would we pay more in taxes to make up the lack of revenue, or have our tax money go to fund a sports team? Same with like the hosting. I understand if the men's team make it back, they make the money back and more with the revenue from their World Cup. That's fine with me. If they can sustain themselves, great. But I don't want to get into a situation where you're wasting government dollars trying to fix a problem that really doesn't have anything to do with the average taxpayer. But that's just me. I don't know what other people's thoughts are on that, and I'm sure it's going to be hashed over. And I'll be honest, I doubt it will change. They could do equal pay, but if you look around it, they don't have a professional women's league because it got killed. ESPN just did a 30 for 30. I don't know if it was a podcast. I listened to it as a podcast, but they talked about, I think it was a movie too. I don't know. I haven't been keeping up with the movies lately, but they had talked about the equal pay for women and how in the sports league they tried to get FIFA or whatever the governing body in the United States to help pay women's salaries, and they weren't doing it. and their professional league folded. They couldn't get television networks to pay. So eventually, what's going to happen? You can't rely on taxpayer dollars if they're not getting anything back. Like, are we going to get free tickets to go see World Cup games? Is it going to be a public event? Because if you're going to make it publicly funded and we're hosting some of these games, then I would want to go for free, if we're being honest. So if you're going to make it pure public, then give us public access.
But I'm almost wondering if they were able to do, instead of men, if they want to make the pay equal, if they just make it, instead of men's soccer, women's soccer, that it's just one, all the money's in one pot, if that would be if the money that the men are making from this would be able to sustain the women's programs as well at the higher salaries.
Matt, I would say I'm surprised that they don't do that already. I don't know why they're separating them, and I would be fine with that. If they're going to share revenues and leave the taxpayer dollars out of it, I don't understand why we have to have a government interference. But if they want to just do United States soccer, share revenues, hell, I would be okay if they paid out based on winnings. Win the gold, boom, here you go, women. Because they do it in professional sports. If you win, you get a bump, you get a stipend. They talk about, like, college coaches all the time. Oh, if they would have won their conference, they would have got $500,000 more. Or so-and-so. Do something like that. Do it. Split some of the revenue that way. I would be 100% behind paying extra for the women for actually winning the cup. Maybe that would motivate the men to do a little bit more on their side. I don't know if that would work. But I'm all for giving it a try, because what the men are doing right now isn't paying off. You can't win the Gold Cup. Give them a little bit extra stipend if they win the Gold Cup. Who knows? Maybe some of those missed shots have a little bit more focus on them. And, maybe that's one way to solve it. I wonder what they do for the Olympics. I know certain sports in the Olympics, you get the endorsement deal. So, like, Michael Phelps is going to get paid by who knows what company sponsors him. Is it Nike? Is it someone else? Nike? I know you always rip on me for the pronunciation. Well, one of them, they're throwing big bucks at him. They're not throwing big bucks at everybody. So at some point, there's not equal pay for the Olympics. Maybe there is a base pay for all United States Olympians, maybe. And for soccer, if they did that, I would be 100% fine with it. I just want it to be separated from the government. Don't get these guys involved. We don't need taxpayer dollars or, like, holding the taxpayers hostage. Why would we be punished from hosting a men's World Cup? Because women aren't getting paid when no one watched. I did have the numbers too, and I don't know if I had the final one, but just to give you a base, Matt, the semifinal game had a television rating of like a 5.5. I'll round it up, something like that. And normally that means like 10 million people watched. Like, in comparison, the Final Four games for basketball, they were all in double digits. I think up towards like 12 to 15 million people watching. So college basketball in the United States had more viewers. And then even like college football, the Michigan-Ohio State game from a couple of years ago had double what the World Cup soccer was bringing in. I don't know. I'll see if I can find the final numbers here, because in my notes, I thought I had it, but it wasn't released when I did the research for the show. I don't know if it will be out by then. But I would like to see, because I wanted to see what the men's achieved as well. It was on Fox, a regular network. I think the Michigan-Ohio State game was also on Fox. And I don't know what year I had the numbers for the Michigan game, but I do know that Michigan-Ohio State was like a 10 rating and women's soccer was like a 5. So if you're comparing the two, that's not even the championship game. That's just a random game. That's a rivalry game on Thanksgiving weekend, if I'm being honest. And that's coming as a Michigan man. I know the rivalry means everything, but that's not a championship game. So I want to get your thoughts on that. What could they do better?
I don't know what they could do differently. I honestly, soccer's a second-tier sport in America. I mean, if that, because they still have to compete with MLB, NFL. I think those two run the table first, and then you're looking at the NBA and NHL. So I mean, the big four are going to dominate, and then after that you'll like soccer and golf and some of these NASCAR takes over afterwards. But it's just trying to get the exposure and more people into following the sport. But it's tough because you don't see a lot of the professional soccer games televised. There's no draw for it. Or if it is, it's on some random channel that I'm not paying attention to.
Okay, well, I got good news for the women. The ratings did come out, and they got exactly a 10 overnight rating. So behind the Michigan-Ohio State game, behind the Final Four, because they pulled in, what is it, around 14 million viewers? I think a lot of the bigger college games pull in about 15, and it's nowhere near the Super Bowl or one of the other events. But I would say that Women's World Cup, they said that that's up 20% from the men's final last year, which of course did not include the United States. So I'm not surprised by that. Men's World Cup not bringing in the same amount of numbers. But women's, at least they should be able to compete. I would contend that they should beat basketball. They shouldn't lose to like a random Duke championship game against Wisconsin a couple years ago that I know was a 15, and some of those other games. I understand not competing with like the 21 million college national championship viewers, but they should be getting closer to that number. If you're on a major network for free on a Sunday, I know it was in France. I think it started at 10 or 11 in the morning. So it's not an ideal time slot, but there's nothing else on. I mean, it was after a holiday weekend, 4th of July. I would think most people celebrated on the 4th and possibly on Saturday, so you're unwinding on Sunday. Turn on the soccer game. Get better numbers. If they start to pump in those ratings, I don't see how you can say, hey, Joe Smo, college athlete, you can't get a stipend or you can't get paid. Or like, on the same hand, you're selling women, oh, you need to be paid millions of dollars like the men's soccer team, but you're rating what college dudes make only with their scholarship. And some of those school scholarships are only worth $80,000 total for 4 years. So you can't say on one hand, we're going to pay the women, because if you're looking at the actual ratings, they're drawing less than what college athletes draw in the United States. And that's basically what it comes down to. Because we're not getting the international television money. I know they said something like that French game that I brought up, or maybe that wasn't even the ratings that I brought in, but the other one where it was like 5.5 rating, which is like 10 million was generous. It's probably more closer to like 8 or 9. They said that 60% of all televisions in France watch the game. The United States doesn't get that money. It's not like French are like, hey, thanks for having us sell extra advertising dollars here, United States. We're going to give you a cut of that money. We don't get that. So, have to invest in the team, but we're already winning. Do we really need to invest more to do what? Win more? We're not going to win more. So
the more that we won by, the more the rest of the world thought we were being arrogant and rubbing it in everyone's faces. Anyhow, I think when you look at what they're doing with when they're talking about equal pay, if they mean looking at the percentage of money being distributed, if that money is the same, then I think that's feasible. You know, if the men are getting a 15% cut and the women are getting a 7%, you know, I think if you're making that a uniform number of based off of the total money that you make from your appearances, we're going to give you blank amount. I think that's a justified way that then if the women are drawing more and then they're getting, you know, extra bonuses for winning, then snaps to them. But at least it's a uniform number based off of how much money your sport and your program is generating.
Yeah, and I would be all for the percentages, and I would even throw in like keep the bonuses the same for men and women. If you're going to give each men's player $5 million for winning the World Cup, give each women $5 million for winning the World Cup. Then at least the incentive's there. Because they're not going to give each man like, oh, here's an extra 10 grand. Like, I would imagine to actually motivate them and try to get them to win, which they are trying to win. I understand that. But to get some of these other big time athletes to consider soccer, we're like, okay, well, maybe I'm not going to be able to have an NBA career for 10 years. Maybe I'm only going to make the minimum. Maybe I'm only going to make 3 years of NFL. Maybe I'll look at soccer because I'm on the cusp of getting cut. And then I know that I have a chance of making this much money plus bonuses if we actually win. Right now, if you're weighing beside it, and let's say even if it's baseball versus soccer, baseball has a signing bonus that soccer I don't think comes close to beating right now. So until that happens, we need something to entice athletes to go into soccer. Because you hear it all the time. Is this quarterback going to go to Major League Baseball or is he going to go to the NFL? I mean, it goes back to even like when Jeff Samardzija. You had it, then you had Kyler Murray, then you had Russell Wilson. You have all these guys that are going to choose between two sports. It's never, is he going to go to the NFL or is he going to play soccer? It has never been that. It's never been, oh man, is this awesome outfielder with great Bo Jackson speed going to play soccer? Is he going to play Major League Baseball? Never. So that's what they need to entice those athletes to come over. And then I think we would win a cup. I don't think it would take long. I don't even think you need our best guys. It's not like you need like LeBron and Ray Lewis and like a bunch of like beast freak athletes out there running around playing soccer. As fun as that would be.
That would be awesome. Just watch them just bully people.
Well, you have to have endurance too. So it's not like you're going to be able to be that size. So they don't need guys like that. They need guys like Kyler Murray that maybe are a little bit undersized. If the NFL thing doesn't work out, give him a call. Maybe he doesn't have the skills for soccer. Maybe it's a little bit too late. That's why I think they could develop them by maybe offering spring leagues. And I know they do now, but even in college, maybe try to, as a way, if they start giving a stipend to college athletes, why not give them an extra stipend if they also played soccer in the spring or opposite of your team sport?
You know, I think there's, like, you look at Ocho Cinco. He's been one that is playing on one of the Florida soccer club teams and is active with soccer, but that transition isn't as smoothly as I think you're making that out to be.
I think because they're not brought up with it. He can't play football and soccer at the same time. There's zero opportunities for that. The high school season overlaps. That's why I'm saying if you get it to the point where in high school, if they were smart about it, they would say, look, we're going to try to have multiple seasons of soccer. It's a very cheap sport to run. I mean, you only need a net. Who cares if you rip up an old field or whatever if you're playing high school? But give athletes that opportunity. A lot of them, they play football, and in the spring, they run track. What if you could do football and then in the spring played soccer? What if you could be a dual sport athlete in college because you played football and then to stay in shape, you played like a shortened season of soccer? And then if they start to let you get paid by your likeness, maybe that would entice some guys. Because not every guy that's playing college football is getting drafted into the NFL. I mean, people used to be able to play multiple sports in college, but it's usually either football and baseball, football and track, or some do like a basketball, football thing, like Tony Gonzalez, I think, did that. Maybe he mainly played basketball, but there were guys like that kind of overlapped, but there are really no athletes that ever do soccer and baseball or soccer and some other sport, just because it lines up with football season, and a lot of them know, hey, I'm going to play football. I don't think CTE is going to change it. I don't think CTE is going to make enough people say, hey, you know what? I'm not playing soccer anymore. Or I'm not playing football anymore, I'm going to play soccer. As much as all the media likes to talk about it, I don't think that it's going to happen. So, we went kind of long on this. You got anything else on it before we move on?
Yeah, I think we covered it well.
All right. My next big topic, Major League Baseball. All-Star Game's going on right now. I don't have it up since I've been messing with my computer, so I don't know what the score is. Home Run Derby was last night, And my man Verlander, I do have one of his posters that the Detroit Tigers sent us as support for the show. So Verlander comes out and says, hey, I think Major League Baseball is juicing baseballs. I talked about this. Was it months ago? Was it last year? I feel like we've talked about it for a while. Home runs are up. Science has proven that balls are traveling further. Major League Baseball then puts out an announcement. I don't know if you saw this, Matt. They said they have been laser measuring. They've been using a laser to measure the seams. But some other players came back and said, look, it might not be the seams. The ball feels wet. It feels slippy. I know that if you play baseball, you like the ball. It used to have a little bit of tact to it, a little bit of grip that you could dig your nails into and pump those seams out. I know if you're pitching, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. So you rub the seams out while you're on the mound. If they caught you doing something like that, they could get you for it. No one really saw it or called it anything like that. Just put your nail into, dig up the seams a little bit, and then it would break a little bit harder. Not travel as far. Ball would be knocked down. So Major League Baseball says that they've been measuring the seams. They don't say anything else about the construction of the balls. And I don't think anyone would ever say anything. The manufacturers are saying, hey, we're making these the same as we've always made them. But I'm telling you, if you're a player, you know. Just like when people came out against Tom Brady, if you're a ref, you know on the field that the ball feels flat. They had to have known. It wasn't just Tom Brady sneaking a ball out on the field and not letting anyone else touch it. If you watch a game, he makes a throw, receiver makes a catch. Who touches the ball next? The ref. Every single play. If the ball was that deflated, they would have noticed right away during the game. If the baseballs are sticky, the refs know, the players know, and the teams know. It might not be that noticeable. It only takes a little bit of a change to make that ball go a little bit faster. If you're able to slow the ball down by just digging your nail into that seam a little bit and popping it up. And I tell you, go get a ball, take the seam. I don't have a ball laying around here, at least within reach, because I could show you on the video. You take your thumb, you dig it in right where the seam goes, and you just push the leather down, and you'll get a little bit more bite on your balls. Some people scuff it up. I've seen pitchers that they have like a little thing on their glove. You just scuff it. In between every time you turn around, you make it look like you're hitting the ball into your glove, but you were just actually scuffing it. Wear like a little bracelet thing like I always have on. Make it have like a metal piece. Scuff the ball up a little bit. Those are all little tricks. If you're playing baseball, that you can learn to be a little bit more competitive. And
it'll get banned like Pete Rose.
They're going to say, what are you doing? You scuffing that ball? People get banned are dudes that have like ounces of pine tar on their hat that are dripping down on their face. And they're like, what do you have all that pine tar up there for? Nah, it keeps bees away. No. Like the old George Brett where his whole bat's covered in tar. Like, what are you doing? Everyone can see that. You got to do little things like that. But if the ball's made out of something different, I'm saying that all the players know. They're starting to come up because they're frustrated. Because scoring's up. Games they're supposed to be shortening these games. They're longer because scoring's up. So what are they going to do? Well, it's like a catch-22. You either give up scoring and get the games over faster, or you keep the games interesting by keeping people scoring, but the more runs mean more batters, mean more breaks between pitches, mean more pitches, slower game. So what do they want to do? Where do they want to go from here? What are your thoughts on this, Matt?
I really don't know, to be honest. I mean, my thinking on it is that they have to be improving. Like, technology improves with stuff. So is it the leather that is different? I'm sure the materials have to somewhat change a little bit. Even if it's a little bit different of a grade, a little bit different of a whatever, there's no way that it's the same ball that they've been using since 1901 that they're producing baseball with. There's no way. So I think is they're improving the technology that could show for some. I mean, even I wonder to go as far as like the bats and stuff. You know, are there improvements that it's still a wooden bat that they're using, but are they improving designs or improving, you know, the metric stuff with it that is making it, you know, easier for hitters to make contact with? I don't know. You know, I was looking at the home run derby, and one of the things that I was seeing was what are your thoughts on just using a pitching machine for that?
To be honest, I think it would make it more fair, but there's also some skill to go into it, and I actually didn't even notice. Do they use the same pitcher for everybody?
I think you get to pick your pitcher.
Yeah, I think you get your own guy. And so I think it's more of like a team up where, okay, I bat with this guy all the time. He knows where I like it. And so I think that's a little bit more of a gamesmanship where you could practice all year for it, and I think it makes it better. If you use a pitching machine, yeah, you're going to be getting the same ball, but that's going to favor some guys more than others. Because if I'm a little bit taller, maybe I like the ball up a little bit more, or maybe I like it down a little bit more. The ball's just going to be thrown right in the middle if you're using a pitching machine. Those things are pretty consistent these days. So it's not like back in the day where you throw a quarter in and you're like, oh man, I hope this doesn't hit me. And in the machine, like, they're pretty much laser on these days. So I say I don't mind it. You don't have to swing. It's kind of like, it's a big viewership thing. Let it stay the same. I don't mind that at all. I don't even know what baseball can do, because this is usually when all eyes are on baseball. But you're making fans do the vote. Then you're like putting in guys based on that. It just seems weird. It's not like the same as when I grew up. I feel like the All-Star Game had a little bit more meaning. Home Run Derby had a little bit more meaning because you had the biggest guys. Now you're having guys hit in and win the Home Run Derby that, are they even All-Star caliber guys? I think Major League Baseball put out a thing today, and they had the All-Star lineup from the last time the All-Star Game was in Cleveland, which is in the 90s. And like 60% of the starting lineup is in the Hall of Fame. And that's not even counting guys like Alex Rodriguez and Barry Bonds, which were in that same lineup, that will be in the Hall of Fame, and if they don't, it's a sham. So you're having almost an entire All-Star game. Used to be amazing guys. Maybe it's a product of the steroid era, but I feel like now the All-Star game, you're having a lot more unknown guys, at least to me. And I follow baseball a decent amount. But if you don't know who the guys are because baseball, A, isn't marketing them as much, or B, they're just not sticking around as long. Maybe steroids help with recovery, so guys could then have 10, 12-year careers. I don't know. Because it feels like, oh yeah, we have this guy and this guy that were all-stars before, but outside of like a handful of guys, Trout, Harper, you really don't hear about all these other great all-star guys. Like, I felt like it was a chore for the Pirates to get Bell into the all-star game. I saw a lot of talking heads make excuses against him, and it was like, why? He should be the clear-cut guy. He has the best numbers. And then I see Freddie Freeman starting, and I'm like, did he get in because of his name? Because at some point, that kind of stuff hurts the game, I think. Do you have any feelings towards that?
A little bit, but I kind of just agree with you, to be honest.
I think some of it's social media. So with other sports being so accessible and athletes being so accessible, people can glob on to like any random guy on the team and become a fan. With custom jerseys online, you can now get anyone's jersey. You might be a big fan of a guy. Like, let's say, if you're a Tebow fan, you can go get his minor league jersey and be a huge fan of him and not care at all about some of these other guys, because if you really love Tim Tebow, you can watch all of his at-bats if you really wanted to. You could just buy MLB or minor league baseball television and watch all his stuff. If he's playing, if he's hurt, or whatever. But outside of that, it's like, okay, what's really drawing me into the All-Star game? Am I seeing the best of the best? Is this really something I want to sit in front of my television and watch? I mean, we have the show tonight, so it's going to make it a little bit harder for me, but I don't know. I don't know what baseball is going to do. I think they're always going to have their fans. If they shorten the season, they are absolutely nuts, because right now that gives them so many games to put on TV, so many more opportunities for people to tune in. They can record all of their games. If no one shows up, people still might pay for Major League Network. I think they just need to get rid of blackouts. Get rid of blackouts, let any fan buy a network plan, watch any game, and then you'll be more attached to the team or player. So, that's my thoughts on baseball. I think they are juicing the baseballs, by the way. What's your verdict on that?
I would say maybe not intentionally, but I think they are. I would blame it more on the performance-enhancing drugs that aren't being caught by the screens.
I think that's going to be something that's in all sports, though. I think that you have players that are still going to be mixing stuff. I mean, there was the player that died in his hotel room, Skaggs, a couple weeks ago. That toxicology report is not going to be out until October, I've heard, which is after baseball season. Makes me wonder if it was after Major League Baseball season for a reason. Because you can't tell me that Major League Baseball couldn't rush that if they really wanted to. So, I mean, you're going to have that kind of stuff that's going to be a black eye to the league, because when you're playing that many games, who knows if you're going to be playing hurt, and you know that if you're hurt one more time, you're going to be cut for good. Players are going to take that risk. Maybe you're right. Maybe you're onto something where they're not using real leather because leather's getting expensive. Maybe they're making some type of synthetic. But I would have to imagine that if they're doing laser measurements, they're doing the same tests on these balls, and they were like, hey, it kind of feels the same. It's a little bit cheaper, but it's a little bit more sleek. It's going to be hit a little bit further. And I feel like Major League Baseball signed off and said, you know what, that actually sounds like a win-win for us. Cheaper and goes further for more home runs? Perfect. And then once the players started backlashing, especially pitchers because of their contracts, then they were like, uh-oh. No, good thing we signed all those NDAs so people can't talk about this, but nah, we didn't change it. I feel like they could have just came out and said, yeah, we change the ball every year because we're always looking for ways to improve the quality of our baseballs. That's it. Make that statement. Don't be in denial. The fact that they're in denial makes me think that they 100% knew that it was going on. But let's get into, I know you wanted to hit on, you want to get into some Media Day stuff first before we get into our other topics?
Yeah, I was looking to see, and coming up next week is the ACC Media Days. And one of the things that it's kind of leading up to the August 22nd kickoff of the ACC network. I think that's hopefully going to bring, with more exposure to the conference as a whole, because you see the benefits of the Big Ten with their network, and for the Big 12 with the Longhorn network. Every other conference has pushed out media. It's nice that the ACC is finally getting up with it and getting the infrastructure in place.
Yeah, I would say that I've been kind of torn on the ACC network. I always have considered it a bust because of how late it is launching. But if they can tie it into ESPN Plus somehow, I think it has a chance to be successful. And it really depends on how successful Disney wants it to be. Because right now, the ESPN Plus gives me zero incentive to subscribe. I can watch, 30 for 30s? I can watch Tulane play BYU in basketball. Who cares? you got to actually put games on. And I think if they were smart, what they could do, and it would benefit college football, is if their ESPN Plus included ESPN2. And I don't think that it would happen due to cable television and a lot of them paying big money to have ESPN 1 and 2. But I think until they start to get that level of game onto their network, people aren't going to subscribe. They're not going to subscribe for Pitt and Virginia in football. That's an ESPN 3 game. I'm assuming those are the games that are going to go on ESPN Plus. People aren't subscribing to that. You picked a network. No offense to ACC fans, but those schools don't have big alumni bases. They're not the Big Ten or the SEC. I think if they would have went in, and maybe the SEC is going to be a part of the ESPN Plus, I don't know how that's going to shake out because I think a lot of their games are already contracted out to CBS, then it goes to ESPN, then it goes to ESPN2. And to my understanding, those games are not being shown on ESPN Plus. So now you're on tier 4 or 5 of the SEC, and by that point, South Carolina versus Citadel, no one is watching that game. So you're missing out on the 3 best SEC games every week on ESPN Plus. You're missing out on the top 2 ACC games, the ESPN game and the ESPN2 game. And now you're getting the 3rd tier games. And let's be honest, the ACC is just not that deep. It's not back in the day where Miami is drawing in people and Florida State. You're really down to Clemson and maybe Florida State, maybe Virginia Tech. We don't know. How good are those teams? How many people are actually going to watch them play? So they're really, really scrounging. And I think they're putting the ACC right now at a disadvantage because, yeah, you have the service, but why am I subscribing to it again? It just doesn't make sense. You're not getting the best hockey games. You're getting third-rate hockey games. Those are getting picked up by NBC and then NBC Sports. You're getting maybe basketball, but again, a lot of them are also on TNT and ABC, which is not included to my knowledge. Maybe ABC is the ABC games are included, but guess what? Those are free anyway. You can just buy an antenna. You don't have to pay for ESPN Plus if you want to watch the ABC version. So, what are your thoughts on that perspective?
I want to be able to. It's similar to what we've talked about with baseball. I feel like when you're signing up for some of these deals, you want to be able to make sure that you can see the team that you have. And I've been lucky enough with following Florida State that I haven't had to deal with that problem often of having games blacked out or not being televised. So it really hasn't affected me, but I'm hoping that they are able to broadcast more games. So maybe they do get some of that exposure that then helps with recruiting. I mean, even for a Pitt or Virginia that hasn't had maybe as much success in the ACC, maybe having the network and being able to have a little bit more televised access gives you that extra opportunity to say, hey, you can be on TV, you can be on our network. And I know that based off of some of the stuff that you're saying that, yeah, you're not going to be highlighted maybe on the ESPN or CBS games, but still to be able to be on your own network and to have some access, it has to be something to move in a positive direction.
I would say they could also jump in, and this would be more of a highlight for diehard fans and not bringing in the casual fans, because right now I don't know how much it helps recruiting if no one pays for it. But I would say for the non-football sports and basketball even, because those are going to be slotted exactly the same as I described the football ones, ESPN, then ESPN2, and then ESPN Plus gets the garbage games. Well, in other sports, I've been very disappointed, and maybe it's more of a Michigan thing, being highly competitive in multiple sports that other schools just aren't, especially in the Big Ten. Like baseball, You're telling me you can't have all the baseball games on your Big Ten Network streaming app? All of them? If I were the schools, I would be outraged that you couldn't just stream the games and have a student club do it. I've seen D3 basketball schools have a student club, media team, stream their games. You can't tell me that Michigan can't stream games to the Big Ten Network. Hockey games, can't watch most of them. I have to look and see I can get the radio stream. Can't get the video stream. You can pay for something called Big Ten Plus. Can't get most of the games. I turn on Big Ten Networks, and I joked about this before. They're doing campus eats. I don't give two shits about what cafeteria in Illinois is serving. If I go, I'm like, I wonder if Michigan's beating Minnesota in the hockey game. And instead I turn it on, and it's showing me what Illinois fans eat in the school cafeteria. It drives me insane. So the Big Ten Network, for how much money it makes, a lot of the programming is complete shit. How is that helping me? I can't imagine that some 13-year-old kid or 14, when did kids start high school? 15? They're sitting there as a freshman thinking, oh, damn, I got to start applying to colleges soon. Let's see what they have in their cafeteria. What's on the Big Ten Network? Oh, campus eats great. Exactly what I was looking for. 0 people are saying that. Maybe people are watching it in school. I don't know. I would rather watch the most random volleyball game, or I think about what Penn State used to have. I don't know if they still do because I don't live in Pennsylvania right now. But they used to have, like on the public access, the Pennsylvania State Network, they would play the most random Penn State sports. Water polo. I don't even know if they did water polo, but they did like volleyball, wrestling matches all the time on the PBS channel. And it wasn't the big one. It wasn't number 3. It was like PBS 2. It's like the second one. It was kind of just like a Penn State sports network of random sports. That I was thinking, well, this could be on the Big Ten Network right now, but it never is. I don't know if maybe PBS 2 is still showing Penn State scrub sports. I don't know. Fencing. PBS 2. Penn State's probably on. You could always find live sports for free in Pennsylvania, at least when I was growing up that I can remember. But ACC Network on ESPN Plus, why not? They want more shows. Put every Florida State baseball game on there. Put every NC State sporting event of all time. I think that's what schools should ask for and say, hey, you already have the setup. What if we put together our own media team and we just started streaming every game? I would have to be hard pressed to think that ESPN would say, no, don't do that. Because more games mean more potential subscribers. And then maybe, I know like there's like a Wolfpack TV thing that you can subscribe to down here in Raleigh. I would imagine Florida State has the same thing. Michigan has like an MGO Blue TV. I would rather just get Big Ten All Access or something like that, just call it that I can watch every game that's on the Big Ten Network or that's even not on the Big Ten Network. Let me watch baseball if I want to. Let me watch hockey. Let me watch Michigan compete in softball because none of their softball games are on until the World Series. And then by that time, most casual people tune in. If they don't make a run, they have no idea who's on the team. So that's my last rant with that. Maybe there'll be a chance, and I think it would really help Pitt because Pitt now has sports that they never really had before. Like, or at least maybe they've had, and they were like independent, like baseball and stuff like that they now compete with in the ACC. And by just getting a little bit visible, getting some visibility in Pennsylvania and some of the recruiting grounds, they might be able to pull in a little bit better athlete and be able to compete in the ACC. You never know. So, it might not help Florida State as much, but I think getting those other sports on for the smaller schools and at least the newer schools in the ACC, I think would be tremendous in helping their recruiting. For football, we'll see. I don't think that will move the needle, but I could be wrong. Anything else you got on media days?
Well, there was one other thing, and I don't know if this is a big deal. You tell me what you think. Each team is sending 2 players as their representative for media days. Clemson is not sending Lauren. What do you think about that? They're sending an offensive lineman instead.
Who was that? You broke up there.
They sent one of their offensive linemen instead of Trevor Lawrence.
That's Clemson. Well, is he a sophomore, though? Because I know some schools don't have. There was some flack for Michigan last year because I think it was last year or 2 years ago, they didn't send someone that a lot of the media wanted. And instead, I think Harbaugh sent like seniors. So I don't think that it's a knock on Clemson. I'm actually going to be in their corner because you don't know what the selection process was. I don't know if Dabo in the past only sent seniors. Maybe it's a team voted thing. But I do know that he's younger, so maybe he hasn't paid his dues enough, and he thought that some upperclassmen deserved it more. And to be honest, I would 100% agree with him. Only a handful of guys get to go. Give it to guys that have earned it and have been there for 4 years. Hell, for all we know, Trevor Lawrence could leave early. Maybe he never gets to go to ACC Media Days. I wouldn't hold it against him. I think that's a meaningless event. I mean, as doing like this podcast, basically media guys, that's meaningless. No one cares about. The only sound bites I remember from any media days is last year Urban Meyer. Can you remember of any other ones? Brett McMurphy coming down on Urban Meyer. That's it.
Not off the top of my head, but I think when you piggyback on our discussions about the ACC making money and trying to generate interest, having a quarterback that's going to be one of the front runners for the Heisman Trophy is going to be something that's going to gain people that are going to want to be. They're going to want to hear what he has to say, and I think they're missing it. Not knocking Clemson for it, but just as a whole, when you're looking at trying to have something that you can run with, that the ACC has Clemson in the middle of their run right now. They need to capitalize if they're trying to make money for the conference.
I think they're going to.
Why you would take one of your better people? I understand, from the team aspect that you make.
But I think they're shielding him as well. Because Clemson, there have been requests into the Osterine thing, and they've flat out said that they're not releasing that information. I can't remember if we remembered to talk about that a couple weeks ago or not when that came out. So they're under heavy fire because people want to see what is all coming down. Why would you put your star player into that? This isn't a Heisman hype day. You're going to get some heavy-hitting questions to some of these guys. Now, maybe not by the Clemson media, but it only takes one guy that's actually there to do some journalism, like Brett McMurphy last year, where Urban Meyer kind of dismissed him, and then he fired back, and then that was a whole awesome few weeks where you finally had a journalist take a coach down for lying on that event, and I thought it was awesome. And now I'm sure a lot of USC fans think it is awesome, as Zach Smith thinks that Urban Meyer is going to end up at USC. So we will see what happens, but media days, if they came out and like Taylor Lawrence was there and someone tripped him up on a question about Osterine, that would blow up the entire conference. So, I mean, get your seniors out there. Who cares about the Heisman thing? I think this entire media days thing is to just get through and survive. If you're the bigger team, you're going to have a target on your back, and people are going to come after you. So I think that's why a lot of teams don't put their star guys in there, even if they're having questionable days or anything like that. You're not going to get those guys. Same with after like NFL games. It's not like they're throwing guys that have questionable histories out on the stage. It's always like the quiet spoken lineman or defensive tackle or like third string cornerback or someone like that. Those are the guys that they put out there. And they do it for a reason. So I'm used to it. I did have one other thing. This reminded me of a former Michigan State player, Malik McDowell. He was in the NFL. I think he was with the Seahawks, but I put a video up on Twitter. Go to follow us on Twitter, Southbound Sports. If you go to southboundsports.com, we have our social media at the top. Click on Twitter because he got arrested, and the entire time he just kept asking for a supervisor. And they're throwing him down. He just wanted to see his license. He's like, nah, I need your supervisor. And the guy's like, please, sir. And the guy looked like a little boy trying to take down, obviously, an NFL player. The cop, I feel bad for him. He was like half his size. Just got thrown around in this convenience store. And so I just want to give, like, talking about media days, it reminded me because with today's environment, you never know when anything like that could be recorded. The player from the Chiefs, was it Tyreek Hill? Was he the one that they released? There's supposedly now a full tape where him and his girlfriend discuss her lying on the allegations. Where was that tape when the media originally released it? Did they know that that was part of it and they cut it out?
Guaranteed.
Because they wanted to make him look bad? Because now that the full tape's out there, the cops knew that there were no charges pressed. Is it because they knew that she had filed false claims before? It just makes me think, how can anyone see all the stuff that the media is doing and not be a little bit shocked? And if you fully trust them, I don't know what to tell you. Because this has nothing to do with, this is sports. This is a guy's life. And they put out a doctored tape? I mean, good Lord, have some integrity.
I agree.
I think that's basically it I had for the football stuff. You got anything else for football?
There's one other thing. Did you happen to see what your boy Shea Patterson did?
Well, did you see that was another fake news thing? So, for people that don't know, it didn't start with him. I don't know if you saw the entire thing. So, apparently, there was a Twitter account that they put out something about, I think it was a player from Auburn, where they started to put out fake tweets. So they did like a screenshot thing, and they like made the tweet and they made it look like a player said it. And they started in the SEC. And I actually had the article, but I don't think I have it saved right now. But I want to say it was a player from Auburn, and I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, someone can come on Twitter and correct me, send me the original thing. So they started this account. In the Twitter bio, it says, like, we are a meme account, and all of our tweets are fake. So what you have, Matt, is a case where, I don't know what the SEC one said, but immediately, and it might have even been Georgia, I think maybe Dog Nation was all over it, saying like, hey, if you see this tweet, just so you know it's fake. So basically that account got what they wanted. They got their name out there and they got their tweet. So after the SEC one, I don't know if there was, I think there was another player in between. It slipped my mind. But Shea Patterson then they attacked with a fake tweet, and they made it seem like he had a burner account. So they accredited his tweet for him, and I'll just paraphrase it because they came out and admitted that it was fake. That account did. So it was something like, hey, Shea Patterson would be in the Heisman running if Coach Harbaugh let him call the plays or something like that. So, of course, someone, probably, I don't even know who, so I don't want to throw websites under the bus, but one of the big sports networks that didn't even know that the first one happened from this account, that they were putting out fake tweets, ran it as if it was real. Shea, I think, was golfing at the time, so he was verified that he did not make the tweet as he was actually golfing at the exact same time that post was tweeted or whatever. And I guess there was a misspelling or something. I don't know. I didn't look at it that close. But I think that site came back and then apologized and were like, hey, we were just making a joke. But it just goes to show you that what if we did that? Anyone can make anything, and if there's no verified source, like, you just look like an idiot if you run with it. It's almost like we talked about the rivals following fake Twitter accounts, the rivals recruiting site, and then putting them in their recruiting database as a 4-star lineman or whatever they did. 3-star lineman. Basically the same exact thing, where you put out a fake tweet and you come after it. But I want to get your thoughts on that. You're a coach. I know we've talked about this off the air about how players basically need to be on Twitter. I know personally from helping a high school athlete go through the recruiting process before, that there were kids at the high school that made a fake account using his name, basically cloned the Twitter account, and tried to sabotage his recruiting process probably because they were jealous. And then that parent had to go to the local magistrate and get a cease and desist order, send it into Twitter, and then they finally deleted the account. So it's crazy world out there that anyone, a high schooler, can go ahead and have to go through that bullshit just because they have an account, someone's jealous, and they throw up a fake tweet. But you're a coach. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I agree with you. I think it's ridiculous, and I think everyone's looking for their 5 minutes of fame. And unfortunately, they do it, and people get affected by it. I was curious to see what your reaction to it would be because of it being Shea Patterson. But coming from someone like that, it's almost like you have to understand that there's a lot more speculation, and the reason those stories make big headlines is because when those ones actually are true, it's so far out there that you're questioning CTE and trying to have headlines. I didn't think too much into it, to be honest, just because even if an athlete comes out and says something like that, does that change anything? Is he getting kicked off Michigan for that tweet? Is it causing locker room issues? I don't know. Doubt it. Not over one tweet. Now, if it's a series of things and he's consistently causing problems, yeah, I could see that it leads to something, but not for one, and especially a burner account or a fake meme account.
Well, you already had the guy, was it the 76ers guy? I know it was an NBA guy that had the burner account that was defending all his guys, and he got caught using it. Because, I mean, if you have... So, the difference is, when you're verified or whatever, Twitter knows what your IP address is. So, there have been times where all an internal guy has to do is just take a screenshot of what accounts are logged in. Like, I'm sure they could verify that my Twitter account and the Southbound Sports one logged in from generally the same place, and a couple of other ones, like if Matt would log in, they know that we're connected. So it's not far-fetched to go ahead and roll with it because there's no consequences. So I found the original tweet. It was Auburn, and it was a quote from Mario Cristobal that was the Oregon head coach. So that's the one that originally went out. It said something about playing in the Pac-12, blah, blah, we're stronger and faster because of that. Something like a generic tweet like that. And then, of course, teams run with it. And I wasn't going to call sites out, Matt, about the fake tweet, but I'll do it because a lot of them still have it up. Yahoo Sports still has the fake tweet from a day ago. But you know what's crazy is if you scroll down on the Google thing, USA Today, 2 days ago, guess what site? Spartan Wire already had the news that it was fake. So if a Michigan State fan site is putting out, hey, this is fake, just so you know, like that's telling you something. And then you go back and you just read which ones yesterday, after it was already out and proven that it was fake, you have Yahoo Sports writing an article on it. Bleacher Report still writing a fake news article on it. Actually, Yahoo Sports had 2 articles written on it. Saturday Tradition changed their headline, so I don't know if it's still, because I looked at their article. It says, appears to be fake, but then their story is still the same about how he's bashing Jim Harbaugh in the fake tweet. So another Bleacher Report one. So basically all those ones that I just named are fake sports machines. Anyone's just running with it. Because if you scroll down until you find, like I said, USA Today was the first one. Their headline is Shea Patterson tweet about Harbaugh was fake from 2 days ago. You still have all these other ones, Die Hard Sports, whoever that is from a day ago, writing an article 3 days late, by the way, about something that turned out to be fake. It's sad. It's sad that all these, basically they're just copying off each other, doing zero research, probably an intern, getting paid zero, putting it out there. So, as a guy like you said, is it going to cause locker room issues? I don't think so. a lot of them are, if anything, it's going to help coach reel people in and say, hey, be careful what you put out there. I looked at Shea's account. The last thing he tweeted was like about the College World Series, giving our baseball team good luck, like in June. Maybe one other thing that I missed. So it's not like he's going to go out there and start trash talking people. He's just probably not on it. So whatever. As a kid, you got to be careful though, because a lot of people are going to be trying to bring you down. That's just the way it is. People are going to be jealous. So keep your stuff. Make sure you have like your password protected. You have the dual authentication or whatever. You get that set up, because a lot of people, the initial reports were that Shea was going to come out with the vaunted "I was hacked" excuse. And so a lot of people were like, just look for it, it's coming. And then you'll know that he truly tweeted that out, but it didn't happen. He just waited it out. And that's some of the best advice, because I'm in tech. If you're in a situation like that, sometimes it's best just to ignore it. Because if you ignore it, especially if you're on a small scale and you don't let a lot of people pick it up, if it's fake, who cares? Wait for a newspaper to interview you after a game and bring it up, especially if you're a high school player. Who cares if some random dude is talking trash on you on Twitter? We get that all the time. Not a big deal. Especially if it has like a fake profile name and you're pretty sure it's Tony Dungy. Doesn't matter. Let them come at you. Anything else you got for us this week, Matt?
No, that's about it.
All right. I did have one more thing. I forgot to talk about the Penguins. Extended Mike Sullivan. 4-year extension. He's now signed through the 2023 season. So that's what I'm going to end on. Not a bad move. I'd rather see some consistency through what's going to be a transition period. Hopefully not a complete rebuild. But I want to see how the rest of the roster shakes out. There's been some other rumored trades. Penguins might not be done yet. So go to southboundsports.com though. Check that out. We have the Amazon stuff up. So if you want to shop through Amazon, or if you do shop through Amazon, go to our site first. Click on our link and help support the show. Like I said, we're going to be updating the video feed. Hoping to get some more features in place by the time that football season rolls around. I know it's approaching very fast. We got camps coming up and media days. So a lot of exciting things. Matt, you got anything else to wrap up the show?
Nope.
I think that pretty much hits on it. So thanks for listening. Check out our site, and we will see you next week.